Lincoln had always said that a president had no constitutional right to attack slavery. Now the Civil War changed everything. The American Civil War spanned from 1861 to 1865, and when it began, President Abraham Lincoln framed the conflict as concerning the preservation of the Union rather than the cause of the war being the abolition of slavery. By mid-1862, as thousands of slaves fled to join the Union Army, Lincoln was convinced that abolition was a sound military strategy, and so as Commander-in-Chief, Lincoln acted out of military necessity.
It doesn't represent a change in his own morale. He says this is a war measure because slaves are essential for the South's war effort. If we can encourage slaves to leave the Southern lines and come to our lines, we will reduce their capacity to make war. And it also comported with his own wish to see all men everywhere free.
In an office of the War Department, Lincoln asked for some paper, saying that he wanted to write something special. He then sat down and began writing the Emancipation Proclamation. Major Becker of the War Department was asked to keep Lincoln's writings under lock and key as he mulled over the document for weeks, writing a little bit of it at a time.
He would look out the window a while, then put down a line or two, and then sit quiet for a few minutes. Major Thomas Eckert, War Department.
Lincoln was ready to show his document to his cabinet by July of 1862. The proclamation said that in any state that was still under rebellion by January of 1863, every slave would be made forever free. However, when Lincoln first proposed the Emancipation Proclamation to his cabinet, many of his cabinet secretaries were apathetic or worried that the proclamation was too radical. Secretary of State William Seward suggested waiting for a Union victory so that the government could prove that it could enforce the proclamation. Although the Battle of Antietam resulted in a draw, it gave the Union Army the boost it needed to drive the Confederates out of Maryland. This was enough of a victory that Lincoln felt comfortable issuing the Emancipation Proclamation 5 days later.
September 17, 1862, stands still today as the single bloodiest day in all of American history. Nearly twice as many Americans died in a single day at Sharpsburg, Maryland, as had fallen in the American Revolution, the War of 1812, the Mexican War, and the Spanish-American War combined. By comparison, American losses on the bloodiest day of World War II, D-Day, were a quarter of those at Antietam.
This was a period in which many officers in the Union Army were saying that the rebels had won the war, they had proved their worthiness of independence, that their own men had not fought well, and that they might as well confess that they had lost the war.
The Lincoln administration now, for the very first time in the war, is desperate. It must have a victory. The enemy has now invaded the North. We cannot fail. There cannot be another loss.
For Lincoln, the victory at Antietam was more than just an item on a political schedule. It had become a matter of almost religious commitment for him to link Antietam with the Emancipation Proclamation.
Contrary to popular belief, the Emancipation Proclamation did not make all slaves free. As much as Lincoln would have loved to see all men free, he was well aware of the fact that freeing slaves all across the country would cause the border states who were loyal to the Union angry and possibly cause them to rebel as well. So he freed the slaves that were in the southern states and them only.
Lincoln was careful not to upset the slave-holding border states. The proclamation did not free slaves in Union areas, but it did encourage southern slaves to flee the plantation.
He was as brilliant a public relations strategist as he was a political military strategist, and he wanted that emancipation to be couched for the American people in terms of saving the Union, because he knew that issuing it as a gesture toward eventual equality, certainly toward abolition, was going to be very unpopular and could bring down the Northern.
President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, as the nation approached its third year of bloody civil war. The proclamation declared that all persons held as slaves within the rebellious states are and henceforth shall be free.